Are you looking to land a new job, a promotion, or an opportunity? Then you tuned into the right channel. Welcome to Get Hired. In today's show, we're going to be talking about what recruiters are really looking for, things that you need to know to get your dream job or opportunity. So don't go away. We'll be right back with this episode of Get Hired. Welcome to Get Hired. If you've just joined us, I'm your host, Bridgetti Lim Banda from Cape Town in South Africa. And today we're going to be talking about what recruiters are really looking for. This live stream is made possible by StreamYard and Be Live Media. So a special warm welcome, whether you are watching us over on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, on LinkedIn, or over on Amazon Live. Do know that we are monitoring the comments in real time. This is an interactive live show, so feel free to say hi. If you've got a question about our topic today, or for my co-host or myself, please feel free to pop those into the comments and to ask. But on this show, we're all about helping you level up on your online appearance. And before we dive into our topic for today, which is to find out what it is, the things that you need to know if you are looking for a new job opportunity, there's just a few gear recommendations that I'd like to share with you. And one of them is a camera, because you do want to make sure that people can see you clearly and have the best picture possible. So I do recommend the Logitech range of cameras if you are using an external webcam. The one I'm using right now is the Logitech Brio, which has got the trademarked bright light and HDR technology. And that's just a fancy way of saying that you don't have to fuss too much about your lighting. In the previous episode, we did talk about lighting. So if you missed the previous episode, watch the previous episode, because we spoke about how you can get the best possible light, how to position your lighting. But having the Logitech Brio certainly does help with your lighting. And then when it comes to sound, we touched on that as well. What I use is the Samsung condenser microphone. And this microphone in particular is incidentally the world's first USB condenser studio microphone. And what makes this a great microphone is the fact that it's got, you'll see that it's got, and so it does help for, it's a die-cast construction, so it reduces noise vibrations. But not everybody wants to have or needs to have a huge, big microphone. But like this, which is the Rode Lavalier, which is a lapel. So something very small, but it will make a huge, huge, big difference to how people can hear you. So do take a look at investing in that. And then also sometimes not everyone has got a laptop when they're looking for a job, and so they're using their cell phone, and there's nothing wrong with that. But what you do want to do is turn your phone into landscape mode, and we talked about that on the previous show as well. Otherwise, you get those black lines on the side, and it's not very flattering. You want to use the screen real estate. We talked about that in the previous show as well. Have your phone in landscape, but you don't want to hold your phone in your hand. Do use a tripod. Um, and if you really want to make sure you do a good job of positioning your phone, you can also use something like the DJ Osmo, which is a stabilizer. And another thing you can also use to stabilize your phone are one of these. So do make sure that you don't make your interviewer feel seasick by trying to hold your phone in your hand. Do use a stabilizer of some sorts. Anyway, we've got all kinds of tips and tricks to use so that you come across the best possible way. But today we're going to be talking about what it is that recruiters are looking for. So before I bring up my amazing co-host Aletta, she is the founder of Voicing Your Potential. She's passionate about helping you speak like a professional so you can get noticed, remembered, and, as the name of our show says, get hired. Aletta is a certified world-class speaking coach, and she has trained and spoken in 22 countries. So she's got a proven system that is fail-proof, and it really works to help you get hired. And so with that, Aletta, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Bridgetti. Lovely to be here, and hi to everyone who's tuned in online.
Yes, welcome to the show again, everyone. And I think let's dive right into this because it's important to know you don't know what to do unless you know what it is that recruiters are looking for in the hiring process. Aletta, do you want to just dive right in?
Absolutely. When you go for an interview, chances are you're not the only person with a similar skill set that's been called for an interview. And some candidates make the mistake of thinking that their resume or their CV will do all the talking for them in an interview, that they can just submit that beautiful document that they've spent hours putting together, and that'll carry them over to the second interview and to getting hired. I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but the reality is people skim through CVs or resumes, and the reason they have interviews is for you to bring your CV to life. And as a recruiter, there are things that they are looking for and listening for. And for you as a candidate, if you are aware of what they're looking for and listening for, you can try and emphasize those points during your interview. And you can do that not just by telling them what you've done before, but you can tell them how you've done it. You can share stories of experiences that you've had in the past. And those can add substance to your claims of being a really good project manager, for example. It's the stories that you tell and the stories that you share and the way that you share them that makes a difference. So as you can see on the slide, it matters that you know what recruiters are looking for, mainly because it's so hard to get an interview. I know so many people who say to me, I have been applying for job after job after job, and I'm not even getting the interviews. So once you are lucky enough to get the interview, you want to get it right when it matters most. And your interview preparation is the one part of the interview process that you have 100% control over. So you can make sure you do the right amount of prep so that when you show up at that interview, you know what they're looking for. You're ready for the answers that will illustrate you in the best possible light. So the first thing they're looking for is, are you a good fit? As I said in the beginning, they've looked at your CV, so they already think you've got the skill set or the competencies to do the job. But now they want confirmation of that. And they will often ask you questions like, tell us about a time when you had to manage a very stressful project. And they're doing that because they want to get insight into the way you think, the way you approach problems, what you've learned from past experiences. So all of that demonstrates that you have the competencies for what they're looking for. So make sure before you go into the interview that you refresh your memory, because especially if you're applying for multiple jobs, it's difficult always to remember exactly which one relates to this interview. So just before the interview, go and look at that job description just one more time and make sure you understand exactly what they're looking for so that you can highlight those aspects of your experience that fit the title or the job that they're looking for a candidate for. So look at that job description in detail. Ask yourself, what are they saying when they say that you want good teamwork? Why would it be important to them? And then if you think about it as a recruiter, for instance, if I'm hiring a project manager and I want someone who's got good teamwork abilities, it would be because when the team functions well, the project inevitably can run more smoothly and you don't have drama of people not getting on. So that's one of the ways you can demonstrate that you're a good fit for the job, because you've got the people skills necessary to manage the team that gets the job done.
That's such an important aspect because, you know, people sometimes spend so much time on just their CV, and they think that, you know, having this fabulously typed or CV layout, you know, maybe they get some expensive paper, they get it professionally printed, and they think that that's all it's going to take to seal the appointment or the job for them. But as you said, what we tend to forget is that they get hundreds of applications. And sometimes they're not even going to pay attention to that fabulous quality paper that you've got, because there's just so many to look through. You know, no, they're not going to feel, oh, this paperweight is like, oh, this is an expensive paper. They're not going to focus on that. So you've got to find a way of really selling yourself well.
Absolutely. And remember, your CV is actually a filtering tool. A few years ago, my husband was hiring somebody in his company, and we placed an ad for the job, and we got over 200 applications. And it was hard work looking through those CVs. So at best, we glanced at them, and initially what we're looking for is to filter the people with relevant experience, because there were plenty of CVs that had no experience relevant to the job that was being advertised. So the CV was a filtering tool, and it helped us narrow down that pool of applicants from 200 down to literally 3, because that's as many as we were going to interview. So your CV might get you the interview, but once you're in the interview, you need to come to life to make sure that you can demonstrate that you are the perfect fit for the job. So they're also looking for, are you prepared? Now, put yourself in the shoes of a recruiter for a moment. Imagine you hiring for whatever position, and you've advertised the job, you've had a whole host of applications come in. We came across a survey that was done in 2016 by Glassdoor, so that was pre-COVID. And that survey said that for every job advertised, companies on average get 250 applications. Of those, they might interview 6, and of those 6, only 1 gets a job. So it's really, really tough in the job market currently, unless you've got a very rare skill that people really, really need. So imagine yourself being the recruiter, putting out the ad, wading through all those CVs, and now you've got the 6 people who are coming for the interview. What would you think of a candidate who came to the interview who wasn't really prepared, who was kind of just winging it and very casual, clearly hadn't done the research on the company? For me as a recruiter, there would be alarm bells going off in my head. The first one would be, if this person can't be bothered to prepare when he's trying to impress me and get hired, what are the chances that that same person, once he or she is hired, would be a good asset to the team if they can't even do the basics of preparing for the interview? The other thing that it would make me wonder about is that person, don't they know what to do to prepare? Which is also quite concerning. So showing that you are prepared for an interview is so crucial. And as I said a moment ago, that is something you have 100% control over. So let's go through a few things that you can do to prepare for an interview. The first thing would obviously be to look at the job description and make sure you understand what they're looking for. The second thing would be to research the company, to make sure that you know what they stand for, what are their values, why are they in the news, and be able to answer the question, why do you want to work at this company? We live in a very much a values-driven society. So it's so powerful if you can show up at an interview and say, I love your value of sustainability, and this is why it matters to me. And that's another way to demonstrate that you're a good fit for the company. And it doesn't take particularly long to research a company, but research the industry, find out, is it very commodity driven, price driven? Have there been any dramatic happenings like new technology in that industry? Who are the competitors? Just have a kind of an idea of the context in which they're operating. And when you come with that knowledge to an interview and you can bring one or two facts from that research into your discussion, it immediately makes you stand out as a candidate.
And it doesn't take a lot of work to do that research. With the internet these days, you've got everything at your fingertips. It's really so quick to do that little bit of research, and also just the level of the research that you're doing. People can quickly tell, whether or not you have taken the time to do good research, because there's research and there's research. And what you don't want oftentimes in an interview is dead space, where the recruiter's kind of like wondering, do you really know your stuff? Because then you've already lost the job, So be over prepared, which is one of the things I think you mentioned, than be under prepared.
Absolutely. And the thing is, an interview, as much as it is a kind of an interrogation, they're going to be asking you lots of questions. If you can make that interview conversational, and you can show up as somebody who can have a conversation, somebody who they'd like to have on their team, someone they'd like to have a cup of coffee with, you immediately come alive as a candidate. And that's where the preparation comes in, because if you are so anxious that you kind of almost robotic and only speak when spoken to, you're not doing yourself justice. You have to show up as that real version of yourself that they can imagine being part of their team. But being prepared helps you relax during an interview. So take the time to prepare, to do the research, so that you can set yourself up in the very best light when you do get that interview, because you've got to get it right when it matters most. You don't get a second chance.
Absolutely. And one of the things people may overlook is that even though a lot of interviews are still being done virtually, it's not too different from an in-person interview. You still need to be able to make eye contact and show that you are comfortable. Because if you're uncomfortable in person, you're going to be uncomfortable on camera. So if being on camera is not your thing, get comfortable before your interview. Practice.
Yes. And as you said at the beginning, go back to our previous episode and look at all the tips on the lighting and the camera and the angles, because you've only got this little rectangle of screen to show up and engage in. So you've got to make full use of it. You can't just sit back and, have poor lighting. That's not good enough. You've got to just optimize the little area you've got on screen and make sure you take full advantage of it.
Absolutely. And people sometimes forget about the nuances that can be picked up on camera, and your recruiter is going to take note of that. For example, I think it was just the previous show that I did, my co-host, I asked her afterwards, I said, why were you so distracted during the show? And she said, no, she was worried that her battery was going to run out. Check those things beforehand.
Yeah.
If you're going live with your phone or with your laptop, make sure that it's fully charged before your interview, because you don't know. The interview may end up going really, really well, and the recruiter may ask you additional questions and it goes on for a bit longer. So don't kind of think, well, my battery should last for 20 minutes, it won't be long. Rather be over prepared. Make sure your battery's charged or it's plugged in. That's the last thing that you want to happen to you. And I don't know about you, but it's funny how, just talking about this experience I had with my co-host in another show, and while she was trying to sort of fiddle with this, she was like looking down and she looked very stern and serious, and and I could see she was trying to do something, but to a recruiter who's talking to you, that could come across as if you're not being attentive.
Yes, absolutely. And it comes across as being disengaged. And
Yes, that's the
that's
word.
that's not what you want. Because remember, if there are 5 of you being interviewed, you've all got the similar skill set, the similar set of experiences. But now you have to stand out from your competition. And that is often by the way you show up, the way you engage online, and how you kind of come alive and just be conversational and share your experiences. And that perhaps goes to another point, which we're going to do in a future episode. And that is part of your job in an interview is to sell your strengths. That's why you're there, to strut your stuff, to make them see how much value you can add to the role. And one of the ways you do that is by sharing your stories. And you've got to be prepared to say, I'm really good at this. And so often people think, oh, that's bragging, it's arrogant, I can't do it. But I encourage you to reframe your thinking around that and say, I've got this talent. I can do, let's use an example. I can work with Excel spreadsheets. Everybody comes to me to help because I am such a good driver of Excel spreadsheets. I don't know what that name would be. But that is a gift you've been given. You've got the mind that can make that happen. You've got the expertise. And that is a contribution to a role, to a project, to a company, to a department. So why wouldn't you share what you can do to help make things better? So it's not bragging, it's sharing the gifts you've been given as a contribution to whatever you're working on. And go with that mindset. How can you share what you've got as a solution to the problems that they're trying to solve?
And sometimes, just in conversation, you may discover that something that's a passion or a skill that's not even directly related to that role may end up being very, very valuable to the company. So don't hold back from sharing things that you've done in the past or things that you enjoy. You never know. And it's funny sometimes how the things that you least think of would endear you to your recruiter.
And so often we encourage people to take stories from their life that have nothing to do with work. It could be, we had one of our students who was a fairly stiff character, if I can put it that way. He didn't relax easily, but he started telling a story of how he prepared and trained to cycle one leg of the Tour de France. And it was a brilliant story. Number one, he was passionate about cycling. So he came alive as he was speaking about it. And when he told us how he planned and how he trained and how he committed and how he trained no matter what the weather, and those are all qualities that you want in a business person, the ability to plan, to commit, to train, to never give up. And that became a powerful story that he could use in an interview to illustrate how he approaches any project that he's working on. And when you speak about something you're passionate about, it's just brilliant. You just kind of relax because it's something you love, and it's very compelling in an interview to come alive in that way.
And the conversation just flows, and it's funny how even stories of tragedy sometimes can bind people. We have people these days with mental health issues. People are a lot more open about things like that. And who knows, the recruiter's mother may have a condition that you're talking about. and and that might endure him, but that just speaks to the value of stories. Don't be afraid to use storytelling as part of the conversation. So have some things in your mind that you could talk about. If there's dead air, be prepared. Have those stories, and something that I personally would encourage people to do is to, even if you have these stories, write them down on a card or something, a piece of paper, and have it on your screen. If you must have jot notes or something all over your screen, just to jog your memory. Because generally speaking, most people, when they under the stress or duress of an interview, you forget things. But if you have it written down on a little notepad somewhere, just to jog your memory, and it doesn't have, you don't have to write out the whole story, but just the gist of it, like a key point or two or three, just enough to kind of jog your memory so that if you do forget or you get stage fright or something, you've got it there and it'll help you remember and relax. And something
And
funny I often tell people also, sorry, is whatever makes you feel comfortable. If you've got a baby in your life, your niece, nephew, your own child, put that picture on your screen, just something that'll help you relax and feel comfortable.
Absolutely. And I just wanted to comment on the storytelling. It's very difficult in the moment when you get a question like, tell us about a time you worked with a team that didn't get on well together. It's very hard in that split second to come up with a relevant story. But if you've thought about it ahead of time, and as Bridgetti says, you've made a little crib note of a few key words related to that story and how it relates to the role, then you can think, okay, that's the right story for this question, and you're ready to answer. So those little things make an enormous difference to the way you show up as a candidate.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember a couple of times when I first started doing live streaming, I had a lot more notes than I have now. I think I had, like, my whole screen had full of little things just to jog my memory. But the more interviews you do, and role play is another
Yes.
way of helping you to relax.
Mm.
Find a friend and just role play through that, especially if it's somebody that you get along with very well, just to help yourself acclimatize or get accustomed to talking into the camera. And a friend is more likely to give you an honest feedback.
Mm.
um,
And
so
my
that helps.
suggestion, it does. And my suggestion is when you do those role plays, take turns being the recruiter. Because when you listen as a recruiter would listen, and you listen to a story and you say to yourself, well, what does that tell me about that person and how does it relate to the role? You develop the awareness that recruiters have. So keep swapping. Don't always be the candidate. Sometimes be the recruiter thinking like a recruiter. Then that'll help you as you prepare your answers.
I think that's a great suggestion, to swap. I haven't thought of that one, to swap role plays, to role play, because, as you said, it's just a mindset thing. You want to, you want to think the way that they do. And sometimes when you do that, you'll think of things that you may not have thought of otherwise, in your preparation for that role. Any final thoughts before we close down for today?
I think, Bridgetti, interviews don't always come along very often. So if you're in the job market, if you offered an interview, take it. Even if you don't think you'd like that role, take the learning that comes from the interview itself. There's very little substitute for that. And never forget to continue to believe in yourself. Being rejected is part of the interviewing process and job hunting, and don't give up. Keep on focusing on the value you can add and keep trying, keep doing things that keep you in that positive mindset, but keep preparing well, because the more confident you are, the more relaxed you'll be and the more successful you'll be.
I think that's a great note to end on for today. Be prepared. And if you've missed this episode live, please do rewatch it. And I would encourage you to also watch the previous episode again, because there were some amazing tips and tricks on how to be on how to get camera ready. And so this was a nice follow on, looking at what the recruiters are looking for when they in the interview process. Aletta, thanks for sharing your words of wisdom. Thank you very much to those who have joined us live today. Rashid's over on Amazon Live. Thank you so much. And to those who's watched us on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Twitter, and also over on Facebook, thank you so much. Take care, stay well, and we'll see you on the next episode of Get Hired.